Hey everybody, this is Fletcher with Deliberate Receiving, and this is another Law of Attraction Q&A video. Today's question comes to us from a mom who wants to know, what can you do when your children simply won't listen to you? How do I react when my kids throw a tantrum or fight or try to fight with me? How can I stay in a good feeling place? I know that I can't really control others, but how can I create the reality I dream of when my kids are so resistant? Well, this is something that all parents are going to need to deal with. And the very biggest thing that you want to always remember is everything that happens in your reality is a reflection of your own vibration. So this is much less about your kids and much more about you. Your work is going to start with you, your beliefs, and your vibration, because even your kids are reflecting your vibration back to you. Now, that doesn't mean that if one of your children has a tantrum that you caused that tantrum, but you did match up with the experience of that tantrum and how it felt to you. Because if you weren't a vibrational match to how that felt to you, it would not have been in your reality. So 90% of the work that you're going to do on changing the relationship that you have with your kids, or fixing issues with your kids, is going to come down to work that you do on fixing your own issues. And I cannot stress this enough. I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over again in this video, that you have to clean up your own mess first. It's very much like getting on an airplane and the security instructions, they tell you that you have to put the oxygen mask on your own face first before you assist a small child. It's very much like that. You cannot help anybody else, including your kids, if you have not helped yourself first. So, in order to do that, there's going to be two things I'm going to ask you to work on. The first thing is that you want to always remember, and this applies to any kind of relationship, that how you feel, your own happiness, your own well-being, cannot be dependent on the actions or emotions of anybody else. You cannot need anybody else to do anything or not do anything in order to feel better, and that includes your kids. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that's completely unrealistic, because if your son breaks his leg, God forbid, and ends up in the hospital, you're going to not feel great about that. Of course you're not going to feel great about that. But what I'm saying is that when your child throws a tantrum, you don't automatically have to see that as a reflection of what kind of parent you are. If your child is angry or acts out or does anything, you don't automatically have to make that a statement about you being a bad mom or a bad dad. You can detach from your child's emotions. Your child's emotions are a feedback mechanism just like yours are. So when you have a belief about yourself or about the world that is false, that isn't serving you, you're going to have negative emotion. And your child is exactly the same. And I'm going to give you a really good reason, some major incentive to actually work on this issue on yourself. And that is that children tend to internalize everything anyway. So let's say mommy is sad. They're going to think that it has something to do with them. Mommy's sad because of me, even if it has nothing to do with them. But let's say that your child is sad because of the way that they viewed something that you did. So they have some kind of misunderstanding, something that you could probably help them clear up if they talk to you about it, but it's made them sad. Do you really think that your child is going to be honest with you about why he's sad if he thinks that when he tells you this, it's going to make you melt into a puddle of guilt? No way. He's going to pretend everything's fine, he's going to distract himself, and he's not going to shift that energy, and it's going to come out again later. So what you want to do is get to the point where you can be completely objective, so that if he says, well, I'm sad because you did that, you don't automatically think, oh my God, I'm such a horrible mom. You think, oh, well, let's work on that then. And yes, that can be done. That is possible. And the way you get to that place is, I'm going to give you just a tiny little crash course on how to shift your vibration. But after every fight, every confrontation with your kids, every incident that happened that caused any negative emotion within you, what you want to do is get to a quiet place, go do something that makes you feel a little bit better first, raise your vibration, and then ask yourself the following questions. What exactly set me off? What exactly triggered me? What was it that my son or my daughter said or did? What was the trigger? What was the emotion that I felt? What exactly did I feel? Did I feel angry, frustrated, powerless, like my authority was being challenged, like they weren't listening to me, like I was feeling ignored? Whatever it is, figure that out. And then, and this is the big part, what was I thinking about myself? What did I think that their behavior said about me that caused me to have this reaction? And if you do that and then shift your perspective on that, release this belief, then issue by issue by issue, you are going to get calmer. You are going to be a lot less angry, a lot less frustrated. There's going to be a lot less screaming or yelling or, suppressed anger or whatever. You're going to have a lot less negative reactions to the things that your kids do. And that will then allow you to be in a position where you can guide them. You can teach them how to process their own emotions, how to shift their own beliefs. And it will completely and totally change your relationship with your kids. And you're going to start eliciting a very different version of them. They're going to be much more cooperative. They're not going to push against you as much. They're not going to rebel as much. Now, notice I'm saying not as much because, well, how much fun would it be if your kids were absolute perfect angels? They would be boring, and you don't want boring kids. Now, the second thing that you're going to want to pay attention to is if you have any control issues. Now, we all do, so don't be embarrassed about that. Now, you may not be the kind of parent that thinks that, children should be seen and not heard, but these control issues can be pretty insidious, and they have been in, most families for generations. So they're going to come through in all kinds of ways. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't have any unnecessary rules in your house. You may have some rules in your house, and you may have fought for these rules that make absolutely no sense. And they don't make any sense to you. They don't make any sense to your child. They don't make any sense because you never decided to implement the rule. You simply adopted it from your parents, from your grandparents, whatever. And when you find yourself really getting into a major fight and getting really, really defensive, chances are that you're probably defending something that you can't even justify to yourself, much less to your children. If you can explain the rules that you have because you have adopted them, you've decided to adopt them, there are really good reasons for adopting this rule. If you can explain the rule to your children in a way that makes sense to them, you're going to have a lot less pushback. And so what you want to do is when you find yourself fighting with your kids about some rule that's in your house, make sure that the rule has merit and that you truly believe in it. Not for some arbitrary reason, because that's just how it is, but because you truly agree that there's a good reason for it. And if there isn't, drop the rule. You're not going to win power struggles in the long term with your kids. A lot of the time, when you find yourself getting really, really mad or feeling really, really defensive with your kids, it's probably because you're engaged in a power struggle, and what you're fighting about doesn't have anything to do with the level of emotion that you're experiencing. So these are things you're going to want to take a look at and get rid of the control issues, get rid of the power struggle, and your kids are going to push back a lot less, because these children that are coming in now and have been coming in the last 15 years, these indigo kids, they come in and with a much more innate sense of freedom than we ever did, and they will not allow you to train them out of their connection the way that we did or a few former generations did. So basically, they're going to push back harder than any generation before them if you try to control them, because they know that ultimately it's a futile effort. But what you can do, again, is you can guide them, you can make them part of the decision, you can justify your rules to them, and if what you're asking them to do makes sense to them, you're going to have a lot less pushback from them. So what do you do when your child is throwing a tantrum? Well, let me give you an example. And this is actually a real-life example that I've dealt with several times with parents and clients of mine. So let's say you have two kids, a son and a daughter, and the son is older, and he has been acting out against his little sister, against you. He's been really, really angry, lots of tantrums, kicking his sister, that sort of thing. Well, let's say he's throwing a tantrum right now. In that moment, you cannot try to change anything about how he's feeling or what he's expressing. The only thing that you can hope to change, if you need to, is how he's expressing it. And then you have to give him an alternative. So let's say he's really, really angry and he's kicking his sister. Well, in that case, obviously you're not going to continue to let him kick his sister, so you're going to take him away. But don't say anything like, you shouldn't be angry or don't be angry. What you want to control is the behavior. He shouldn't express his anger that way, but you don't want to give the message that the anger itself is not okay, because it is. He has a right to his emotions. So you may need to remove him from the situation and put him into his room, but don't take it personally. Don't get angry with him. Don't get defensive about it. He's having a moment. He's expressing enormous amounts of emotion. Let him. Find a safe way for him to do it. Maybe he needs to punch the couch or a pillow. Maybe he needs to scream his head off in his room. Maybe he needs to go for a run. Whatever it is, he needs to get the anger out. Then later, when he is much calmer and able to talk about it, make sure again that you do not make this about you, that you clean up your own vibration before you do this, and that you get into a high vibrational place before you go in there. But at that point, you can talk to him. Validate his emotions. So, why were you so angry? You know, it's totally okay to be angry. Why were you so angry with your sister? It's okay to be angry with your sister. Sometimes we are mad at people that we love. Make sure that he feels safe to express himself. And if he says, I'm angry with you, or if he even indicates it with his body language, anything like that, do not take it personally. Do not make it about you, because then the entire thing will break down. And he will experience more negative emotion, but it'll be bigger negative emotion, because what he's thinking then is, oh my God, I've just made you feel bad. Or if he's a little bit older, if he's going into teenage years, he's going to start resenting you for making it about you. You don't want to do that. Make it about him and his emotions are okay no matter what they are. So don't judge anything that comes out of his mouth. Even if he says something like, I hate my sister. Why do you hate your sister? Be more of a therapist and less somebody who's going to take everything that he says personally. Get him to express his feelings. Now, let's say that the underlying cause is that he resents his little sister for being born and sucking up all the attention, which pretty much all older siblings do to one degree or another, and there is nothing as a parent that you can do to stop that. So just don't take it personally. Deal with it as it shows up. So let's say that's the underlying issue. Then you can talk to him about that. Ask him, do you feel that Daddy and I love your sister more than we love you? And do not judge his answer. Because again, this is his perception, not necessarily tied in any way to anything that you did or didn't do. He doesn't have your perspective. He has his own, and his own perspective is going to be very limited and often very, very skewed. This is why we make horrible decisions about ourselves when we're little that stick with us all our lives. And what you're trying to do here is show him that he can shift his perspective on these things before he, is 30 and 40 and has to get into therapy. So ask him questions like that. Ask him, what could we do to show you that we love you just as much? And then work on a solution together, but make sure that he gives you his input. He has to have a sense of control here as well. I have a say in all of this. So maybe it's spending a Saturday every once in a while just with him, without the sister. He gets some attention just for him. Maybe it's, that he is too old for a bedtime story, but he would maybe like to talk to you at the end of the day. Or you can come up with some cooler version or something. Maybe he wants to go to some event and that you could take him to just you or just his dad, something like that. Some personal attention of some kind, but don't assume that you know what he wants or what it'll take. Ask him. Make it a partnership. Work on these issues together. And again, the biggest gift that you can give him is to show him that you're able to make yourself feel better regardless of what's going on around you. And so by showing him that he can shift his perspective and feel better, and even acknowledge, hey, don't you feel better now? Isn't that great? Do you see how you feel better after we did this? That will empower him to take these kind of steps and process his emotions this way all the time. Now, little by little by little, you working on your own issues and then you guiding your children through theirs, you are going to fundamentally change the relationship that you have with your kids. You're going to view their emotional outbursts in a very different way, no longer taking them personally, but just seeing them for what they are. Your kids are going to fight with each other. It doesn't mean that you're a bad parent. They're figuring out the dynamic between who they are and how they want to relate to other people with their siblings. That means they're going to fight. They're going to rebel against you. Sometimes because you're trying to clamp down too much with control, and sometimes just because they're trying to find their own identity, particularly when they're teenagers. They're going to rebel against you no matter what you do. sometimes to a large degree, sometimes to a small degree. If you haven't been clamping down the control too hard, those control issues aren't going to be too bad, and that rebelling probably won't be too bad. But it's going to happen no matter what you do. So make peace with that. But you're going to elicit a very, very different version of your kids, one that is much more cooperative, one that is much more willing to talk to you, willing to share things with you, and you're going to start to see a much more positive side of them. This is up to you and the work that you do on yourself. This is not up to you changing the way that your children behave or act or think. I hope I've made my point on that one. If you'd like more information about how to shift your beliefs, just go to my site, deliberatereceiving.com, and there's a ton of free articles, blog posts, audios, videos, and even a free ebook there that fully explain the law of attraction, and there's tons of information there about how to shift beliefs. If you would like some personal help from me to shift your beliefs and get you on your way a lot faster, then there are also some coaching packages there that you can take a look at, and if you'd like to work with me, you can contact me through my site. Until next time, I am sending you all huge, happy, shiny puppy hugs, and thank you so much for watching.